What if Obi Wan and Ahsoka died in front of Anakin during the Clone Wars? I didn't exactly know what to title this, but it's just a concept I've had in my head for a long time, and I'm glad I pursued it. I know I say this a lot, but this is genuinely maybe my favorite video that I've ever written, start to finish. I just really enjoyed it, so hope you guys do as well. Let me know what you think. Link in the description to support and become a join member. Appreciate ya, and let's get right into it. Our story begins inside of a Jedi transport ship as Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka are about to leave Kuat. They were dispatched there to investigate a separatist threat that turned out to be nothing more than a false alarm. But before they could depart back for Coruscant, the three of them got a transmission from Mace Windu. He told the three Jedi that clone intelligence was just reporting a newly discovered, top-secret facility on Iadu, a terrestrial planet deep in the Outer Rim that they think was now going to belong to the Separatists. Windu said this was a strange move by the Separatists, and Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka are the closest to it, so Windu was assigning them to go on a simple recon mission. Report back with their findings. If they see anyone, do not engage. Simply reconnaissance. The three Jedi acknowledged the mission, then ended the call. Anakin sighed, jokingly saying that he almost missed the battlefront with all of these boring missions they were being assigned to. Obi-Wan and Ahsoka both told him not to jinx it. They were lucky to have a few rotations off from the constant fighting, and they took off for Iadu. On the Outer Rim planet, the Separatists certainly were building a new hideout, but it was not exactly for the Clone Wars. No, Iadu was actually harboring one of the largest kyber crystals ever discovered, and so the Separatists were going to create a base here and begin mining for more crystals for their long-term plan for Sidious and Dooku. The Death Star. And because of this important discovery, Darth Sidious actually made the trip to Iadu with Dooku. Very few things were important enough for him to actually leave Coruscant as Darth Sidious, but this was one of them. It was risky, but it was a necessary risk, as the Death Star was very important for his long-term plans. And so together, Dooku and Sidious now stood on a newly built platform underneath the rocky terrain of Iadu, inspecting the giant kyber crystal, going over the future plans for the Death Star. And as they did so, Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka followed the beacon placed by the clone commandos that scouted this planet, eventually coming upon the area where the Sith were gathered. After some hiking in the rain that was only getting harder, the three Jedi reached a peak, using binoculars to search the area. It was hard to see through the rain, but after some time, Anakin saw something. A giant kyber crystal, and next to it, Dooku. But Anakin felt excitement running down his body as he saw someone else, a hooded man next to Dooku. Could it be the Sith Lord? Anakin told Obi-Wan and Ahsoka, and the two of them exchanged a look, saying they must report this back to the Council immediately. But Anakin said no way, telling them that there will never be a better chance to capture the Sith Lord. Again, Obi-Wan and Ahsoka urged him not to act on this impulse, but Anakin was only thinking one thing. With the capture or the defeat of the Sith, this war can end, and he can live in peace with Padme. With a smile, he told his former master and his Padawan that they can go report to the Council, but he is going to be down there ending this war once and for all. And Anakin flipped backwards, straight down for the Sith. Obi-Wan sighed frustratedly, saying that Anakin is going to be the death of him, and he and Ahsoka had no choice but to follow Anakin into battle. As Sidious and Dooku spoke with the scientists on Iadu, Sidious put a hand up, sensing something. And a moment later, Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka landed in front of the Sith, igniting their lightsabers in the pouring rain. Sidious pulled his hood further over his face, cursing that the Jedi found them here, turning to leave, telling Dooku to take care of them, not to have any mercy. The Jedi could not discover their true plans. Dooku ignited his red lightsaber, telling the Jedi they made a terrible mistake coming here. Anakin told Obi-Wan and Ahsoka that he could not let the Sith Lord escape, so he jumped over Dooku and began chasing Sidious. Dooku let him go, then began the duel with Ahsoka and Obi-Wan, and Dooku would not go easy on them, as he could not risk them finding the plans to the Death Star here. Meanwhile, Anakin chased Sidious through the rain. Sidious moved like a shadow, darting around, and eventually Anakin lost him. The storm on Edu was casting lightning through the sky, and this caused Anakin to not realize that Sidious just shot his own lightning directly into a rocky pillar in the ground. Within seconds, Anakin was running away, but suddenly was hit and buried under an insane amount of rubble. He began angrily clawing his way out, trying to get back to Sidious. He would not lose him. He couldn't. And after trapping Anakin, Sidious moved to the fight with Dooku, Obi Wan, and Ahsoka, and Dooku was handling them rather well. Anakin finally broke through the buried rocks, freeing himself, and in the distance, he could see the duel. Obi-Wan was about to move in once more, but he was unaware of the new fighter engaging the battle. Anakin tried to scream at Obi-Wan to run, but fear made his voice be caught in his throat. And then Anakin saw it. Sidious stabbed Obi-Wan through the back. Ahsoka looked over, distracted and scared, and so Dooku cut through Ahsoka's arms, then slashed across her chest. Both Jedi fell to the ground. Anakin began sprinting, and the Sith leapt up to their now readied ship. Anakin got to the ship, his anger fueling him, and he jumped, trying to land on it, but the engines went into full power, and Anakin was thrown backwards extremely hard, slamming into more rocks. He fell to the ground. Dizziness almost overtook him, but he got up, running to his friends. The rain continued pouring down. Blood was rushing into Anakin's eyes, mixing with tears as he got to Obi-Wan and Ahsoka. The Sith escaped, and now Ahsoka was wheezing, her breath fading more with every gasp. She couldn't even speak. With sad, scared eyes, Ahsoka died, looking up at Anakin. And Obi-Wan, on his final breaths as well, called Anakin over. Anakin tried to lift him up, but Obi-Wan told him to stop. It was over. Obi-Wan smiled, asking Anakin to promise him that he would always choose the light. And he died as well, as Anakin said he promises. And now Anakin found himself kneeling, alone in the pouring rain, his fallen friends on either side of him. He tried to force heal them, tried everything, but they were gone. And the only thing Anakin heard was Obi-Wan and Ahsoka urging him not to fight, to go back to the temple. And he didn't listen. The sadness in Anakin now turned to anger. It was just like Tatooine when his mother died, but this time it was worse. Much worse. He swore to never let this happen again. And now around Anakin, the ground shook, rocks were rising up, lightning crackled overhead as Anakin's anger influenced the surroundings. And with a scream, he slammed his fists into the ground. He would find Dooku, he would find the Sith Lord, and he would destroy them. But from here, Anakin would have to do what he was best at. He would tuck his emotions deep inside of him, forcing himself to be like an emotionless robot, an emotionless volcano, in order to stay sane. He would grab the bodies, bringing them back to the temple, and inside the temple on Coruscant, Yoda, Mace Windu, Plo Koon, and many other friends of Kenobi and Ahsoka stood at the entrance as Anakin carried their bodies inside, placing them down in the burial area, going to his quarters without speaking or without looking at anyone. When Anakin had erupted in anger on Edu, Yoda felt it through the Force. And now he understood why he felt it. Anakin's two best friends were gone. The boy was unbalanced, set for eruption if he was not watched closely. These were truly dangerous times. And the funeral was extremely hard for Anakin. He had his wife there, Padme, on one side, and he also had his greatest mentor, Palpatine, on the other side. It was tough, but when it was over, Anakin went to a very exclusive restaurant with Palpatine, and Anakin was just happy to be able to talk with someone about it all. Someone he thought that truly cared about him. And like always, Palpatine was so welcoming, so understanding. It was great. Anakin truly appreciated him, and Palpatine said that he was truly, deeply sorry for what happened. From here, Anakin would spend time with Padme, and after a month or so of meditation, calming exercises with Yoda and Windu, both of them guiding him on how to let go and continue to live happily, Anakin started to feel like himself again. Yoda and Windu decided it was best that they help Anakin through these tough times, and eventually, Anakin would feel his rage begin to dissipate. He was thankful for the Jedi Masters, and during this time, he'd stayed completely out of combat. The 501st was taking a long shift defending Kamino, But now Anakin was allowed back on the battlefield. For a few more months from here, Anakin would return to form, leading the 501st into many victories, when he refused to let himself think of Obi Wan and Ahsoka, for fear of what would happen if he did. Finally, he felt like himself again. And after these few months, Darth Sidious spoke with Dooku, telling him that perhaps it's time they push Skywalker again. They never expected him to arrive on Edu, but both of them felt his darkness erupt when his friends were killed. Anakin hadn't seen the Sith since then, and Sidious had an idea. If he tells Anakin the location of Dooku, then perhaps the dormant darkness will erupt once more, this time for good. So he told Dooku, go to one of the moons of Yavin, an isolated area of the galaxy, and Skywalker will come to him. Anakin was soon returning to the temple after a successful mission on Felucia, when he was called into a council meeting. This was rather strange, but Windu said that the Chancellor requested him specifically for some reason. And inside the council, everyone was gathered, as Chancellor Palpatine said he now knows where Dooku is. After months of searching, they finally found him. Palpatine gave the location to the council, and Windu said that he would put together an attack group to go to Yavin 4, and it will be ready within a few hours. He also told Skywalker to wait in the temple, as this could be a trap. Skywalker bowed and left for his quarters, but he looked back to make sure that he wasn't followed, and then sprinted to the hangar bay. When he found out where Dooku was, something awoke inside of Anakin. It was like a hunger, an addiction that was hiding deep inside of him, and he didn't even know it was there. All it took was learning the location of Dooku for this volcano inside of him to completely erupt. He remembered the feeling when he knelt next to his dead master and apprentice. He swore to himself in that moment that he would destroy Dooku, and now, blinded by his need for revenge, he entered hyperspace, not remembering his promise to Obi Wan. In the temple, as Anakin traveled, Yoda and Windu discussed Anakin, saying that perhaps he should go with them to Yavin 4, and with Windu's guidance, they can see if he has gained balance in the Force. But, of course, Anakin was nowhere to be found. So now Windu hurried his troopers to get ready to depart for Yavin 4. Dooku was going to have Anakin right where he wanted him. And soon enough, Anakin was walking through the Yavin 4 jungle, headed towards the coordinates that he'd been given, and he soon came upon an ancient temple. And now Anakin could feel Dooku. He was inside. Anakin hurried his pace, entering the temple, and he listened now, as Dooku's voice began to echo through the room. He taunted Anakin, saying that he was not strong enough to save his friends, that he would never be strong enough to save those that he loves, unless he accepts his destiny, the dark side. Anakin yelled out that he will never join Dooku, and the Sith Lord said, "We shall see," before igniting his lightsaber and swinging at Anakin. Anakin was able to barely flip away, igniting his own blue lightsaber, and the chamber was now dimly lit, with only the illumination coming from the faint glow of Anakin and Dooku's sabers. Thunder began to echo in the distance, a prelude to the storm that began to brew outside. And as the two adversaries locked eyes, the air was crackling with tension. Anakin, consumed by his emotions, ran forward with a yell, clashing with Dooku's red saber in a dance of deadly moves. Anakin's movements were fueled by grief, anger, and an insatiable thirst for revenge. With each strike, he tapped further into the dark side of the Force, allowing it to course through him like a turbulent river, without even really knowing it was happening. With each strike, he saw Ahsoka dying, then Obi Wan, and he used his anger. As the battle raged on, the storm outside mirrored the turmoil within Anakin. Lightning began to streak across the darkened sky. The wind howled through the ancient temple's corridors. The walls seemed to shudder in response to the intense clash of lightsabers, as if the temple itself could sense the magnitude of the duel taking place within the halls. The two duelists moved up a set of stairs, Anakin pushing Dooku up until they reached the roof, and rain poured down on them, just like on Edu. Anakin pressed on relentlessly, his attacks fueled by the memories of his fallen friends. Dooku parried each strike as he continued to taunt the boy. Lightning crackled, lighting up the surroundings, and Dooku saw Anakin's eyes glow with an ominous yellow tint. He couldn't tell if it was a reflection of the lightning, and Dooku realized now that he was never supposed to walk out of here alive. With Anakin's turn to the dark side, Sidious would have his new apprentice, and he would be forgotten. A nuclear flame consumed Anakin Skywalker, and Dooku's decades of combat experience became irrelevant. His knowledge of the Force was a joke, and Anakin pushed forward. He swung with the rage that he used on the Tusken Raiders, knocking Dooku's saber out of his hands, then turned, cutting off Dooku's hands like he did to Ahsoka, then slashing him across the chest. Dooku fell to his knees, and then Anakin stabbed directly into his chest, like he did Obi Wan. Dooku looked up at him, lightning shot from the sky, illuminating everything, illuminating Anakin, his anger, and Anakin lifted Dooku up by his throat, crushing it with his fist. Anakin watched the life fade away from Dooku, and he threw his lifeless body down to the ground below, letting out a strong scream as he stood here in the rain. But now, the storm seemed to fade away, leaving Anakin alone again in the reality of what he has become. In the distance, he swore he could almost see the outline of Obi Wan, and his final words echoed in the air. "Promise me you will stay in the light." And Anakin had promised him that he would, but he failed. And as Anakin saw a Republic Star Destroyer emerge from hyperspace, he knew it was time to go. Anakin ran down to his starfighter, using his communications to send a message to Padme. He said he would be away for a while. He wasn't sure how long, but he needed to be completely alone, away from the war, away from everything. And Anakin took off, blasting past Windu and the Republic ships, heading into deep space. From here, the Clone Wars would begin to shift towards the Republic. With Dooku dead, the Separatists considered surrender, but Grievous only took on more control, refusing to surrender, fighting harder. And Darth Sidious was frustrated, as Anakin did kill Dooku with the dark side, but then he just disappeared. Anakin was supposed to join him, and in time help him wipe out the Jedi. His empire would rise. Days would become months since Anakin's disappearance, and soon Palpatine was being pressured to end the war. So he decided that soon, without Anakin, he would execute his plans to create his empire. On the planet of Tython, Anakin spent the last 3 months alone, meditating, finding peace, finding the light. He promised Obi-Wan to stay in the light, and now he promised himself that he would honor Obi-Wan and Ahsoka by truly staying in the light for good. He would spend days at a time in deep meditation, finding himself. He would hunt for food. Overall, he was truly at peace within himself. And after these 3 months alone, Anakin decided it was time to return to the galaxy. So he went to the Seeing Stone on Tython, feeling into the Force for where he was needed. The Seeing Stone allowed him to feel Force sensitives in the galaxy, while other Force sensitives could also sense him. And one dark side user sensed Anakin, taking off to find him. Around a day later, Anakin was about to take off to Coruscant, as he sensed a great battle was taking place there, but a ship emerged in the atmosphere, landing next to Anakin. It wasn't a Jedi fighter, which was strange, and the door opened to reveal Maul. Anakin ignited his lightsaber for the first time since Yavin 4, but Maul walked out, saying that he was not here to fight Anakin. Maul knew what happened to Dooku, and he wasn't foolish enough to fight Anakin by himself now. But Maul instead told Anakin that he recently had a dream, where he saw Sidious, saw his great plans, and in the middle of everything stood Anakin Skywalker. Anakin asked Maul why he was telling him any of this, but Maul said it was simple really. He lived for revenge, and with Kenobi dead, he now only wanted revenge on Sidious for discarding him. In reality, with Sidious's death, Maul planned to rise from the criminal underworld, but Anakin did not need to know that, and so he told Anakin that he has long been groomed for his role as Sidious's apprentice, telling Anakin to think. And Anakin considered this now. Who could have groomed Anakin for this? The only people he knew for his entire life, aside from the Jedi, were Padme and... No, it can't be. He looked up at Maul, as Maul said it is him. Palpatine is the Sith Lord. And Anakin realized now, the man who stood with him at the funeral, the man Anakin confided in after the deaths of Obi-Wan and Ahsoka, was the same man that caused it all. Anakin felt his anger again, but he killed it immediately. He would not let Palpatine win. He would defeat him in the light side. So now, knowing the truth, he and Maul took off for Coruscant with the same goal: defeat Darth Sidious. And on Coruscant, Palpatine was in his office alone. Outside, Coruscant was recovering from the battle. He would use this battle as an excuse to end the war abruptly and install the Empire. But before his plans for Order 66 could get into motion, the door opened, and two people Palpatine never expected walked in: Anakin and Maul, together. There was no point in putting up any sort of fake persona for Palpatine. If Maul was here, then Anakin already knew the truth. So Palpatine called his lightsaber to his hand, telling Anakin he will now see the true power of the dark side and learn why he must join him. Anakin and Maul ignited their own sabers, telling Palpatine to surrender, but he only smiled, spinning in the air towards them, and a battle began. Anakin and Maul attacked Sidious in unison, their lightsabers a blur of red and blue. Sidious was the master of the dark side, moving with a sinister grace, effortlessly parrying, countering the combined onslaught, and Anakin, devoid of any internal struggle, fought with ruthless efficiency. Beside him, Maul's acrobatic prowess, relentless assault added to the relentless pressure on Sidious. The room echoed with the clash of sabers, as Sidious now separated the two of them. With a smile, he pulled a second lightsaber to his hand from a statue, lunging at Anakin. Anakin did not see the second one, and he was going to be impaled. But Maul saw this, and he made a decision. Maul's hunger for revenge made him jump in front of the sabers, and Sidious plunged them into Maul instead of Anakin. With a burning anger and hatred in his eyes, Maul held up the two sabers in place inside of his torso and screamed at Anakin to kill Sidious. The Sith Lord panicked. He never expected this from Maul, but his need for revenge was so intense. Maul held a steel grip on the sabers on Palpatine's hands as Anakin used one final swing to cut through the necks of both Maul and Sidious, killing both of them instantly. Their heads rolled to the ground, their dead eyes looking at each other. Maul's were satisfied, while Sidious's were afraid. From here, Anakin would go to the temple, and the Jedi would go to the Senate, saying that Palpatine was unfortunately assassinated by Maul. The Jedi were, of course, lying, but it was for the greater good for now. The Jedi said that Maul was a separatist agent, and this encouraged the Republic to only fight even harder. Within a month, Grievous was destroyed, and the Separatists surrendered. The Republic would rebuild under Chancellor Bail Organa. After the war, Anakin Skywalker was a newer, better version of himself. He discarded the immature, emotional parts of him that nearly caused his turn to the dark side. And in this newfound version of himself, he could even see ghosts of the past. Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi Wan Kenobi became Force ghosts, as Obi Wan was granted this in his final moments. And Ahsoka lived on as well, as the daughter from Mortis gave her eternal life in the Netherworld. Anakin lived happily, learning to communicate with them, and eventually having children with Padme, being granted a seat on the Jedi Council as a master. And folks, that is our story, one of the longer ones in a while. This is, I don't know, I really like this. Having Dooku and Palpatine kind of slaughter Kenobi and Ahsoka at the beginning, having Palpatine then kind of help Anakin calm down. I thought that was really, evil and fun, little two-face action. But then having Anakin think he's all calm, but the moment he finds out where Dooku is, the anger just erupts in him like an addiction that he just can't break. And yeah, he just slaughters Dooku. And after that, he's able to basically calm himself by himself, and then kills Palpatine with the help of Maul. I really enjoyed this one. I hope you guys did as well. Please let me know what you thought. If you want to support the channel, more than just viewing and subscribing, which is a huge help, you can click the membership button in the description. Anyways, much appreciated. Let me know what you want to see next, and I'll see you in the next video.